Eli Draven stood on the edge of the landing ramp, the wind howling around him like the cry of a dead world. The planet beneath his boots was empty, silent, and gray. The sky had no color, only endless dust swirling like ghosts that refused to rest. Most called this place worthless, but to Eli it was freedom. He had paid almost nothing for it. A forgotten rock orbiting a dying star. No atmosphere to breathe, no life to study, no history to claim. Just a place no one wanted, and that was exactly why he bought it. After years of war, betrayal, and the noise of crowded colonies, Eli wanted silence. He wanted peace. His ship, Aurora's End, hissed as it cooled behind him. The trade broker who sold the planet had laughed at him through the screen. "You'll die of boredom there, human," the alien had said. "Or madness." Eli only smiled and replied, "That's the plan." He started building right away. First, he set up his solar arrays and atmospheric processors. Then came his small dome shelter, built from ship scraps and reinforced glass. He named it Solus Base. Every sound he made echoed too loudly in the empty air, as if the planet itself wasn't used to hearing life anymore. Days turned into weeks. He grew plants in hydro trays, recorded his thoughts into the ship's log, and sometimes stared at the twin moons that rose together each night. He didn't speak much, but when he did, it was to himself, or to his AI drone, Luna, who floated beside him, blinking softly. "Luna," he said one night while looking out the viewport, "do you think peace is worth loneliness?" The drone hummed, processing his words. "Peace and loneliness are often the same, Eli," it replied. He chuckled quietly and went back to his drink. But peace didn't last long. One morning, while repairing a solar panel near the canyon ridge, Eli noticed something strange. There were footprints in the dust. Large, clawed, and deep. He froze. No life had been detected when he scanned the planet. No creatures, no biosigns. Yet here they were, fresh prints, leading away from his base and disappearing into the cliffs. He turned on his helmet scanner. Luna analyzed tracks. "Organic," she answered. "Bipedal, approximately 2 meters tall, not human." Eli looked toward the ridge. The air shimmered slightly as the sun rose higher, heat waves twisting the view. For a moment, he thought he saw something move, a shadow slipping between the rocks. But when he blinked, it was gone. That night, he checked the perimeter sensors. Nothing. Still, he armed his plasma rifle and slept with one eye open. 2 days later, it happened again. Supplies went missing from his storage crate: food packs, water filters, and a thermal blanket. He didn't panic, but the feeling of being watched grew stronger each hour. Then came the voices, soft, distant, almost like whispers carried by the wind. They spoke in a language he didn't understand. At first, he thought it was the wind itself, playing tricks on his tired mind. But the whispers returned, closer each time, like something or someone was circling his base. He strengthened the sensors and set small traps outside. Still, every night he heard movement beyond the glass walls of his dome. A faint scratching, a shifting shadow, and once, just once, he saw glowing eyes staring at him through the darkness before vanishing. "Luna," he said quietly. "Are we alone here?" "Unknown," the AI replied. "But movement detected outside. Multiple life signs." Eli's heart pounded. He grabbed his rifle and switched the dome lights to red. The outside cameras flickered. Figures moved in the dark, tall, lean, fast. There were at least 6 of them. He pressed a button, and floodlights exploded into brightness. The shadows froze. For the first time, Eli saw them clearly. They were not beasts. They were women, alien, fierce, and wild. Their skin glowed faintly under the light, covered in tribal markings. Their armor looked handmade from bone and metal scraps. Their eyes, sharp and amber, stared at him with hunger and confusion. They spoke quickly among themselves, then one stepped forward. She looked weak, starving. Her weapon hung loose in her hand. She said something in her language, voice trembling, then collapsed into the dust. Eli's training as a medic kicked in. Without thinking, he rushed out of the airlock and knelt beside her. Her skin was cold, her breathing shallow. The other figures hissed, raising their weapons, but didn't attack. "Luna," he said through his comms. "Prepare medical bay." Now, he lifted the alien woman into his arms. She was lighter than he expected, her frame thin, fragile. When the airlock sealed behind them, she opened her eyes, golden and strange, and stared directly at him. In that instant, Eli realized this planet was not empty at all. Something lived here, something that had been watching him, and now they knew a human had arrived. The airlock hissed as Eli stepped back, watching the alien woman lying on the medical bed. Her skin shimmered faintly under the sterile light, glowing, in strange patterns that pulsed like living tattoos. Her chest rose and fell with shallow breaths. She looked half-starved, more like a survivor than a threat. Eli ran a scanner over her. Severe malnutrition, dehydration, multiple wounds, he muttered, his voice low. The scanner beeped. No infection detected, but cellular decay rate is high. "Luna, start hydration drip." "Confirmed," replied the AI, her tone calm. Outside, movement flashed across the cameras again, shadows shifting in the dust. Eli switched to the security feed. Several figures crouched among the rocks, their eyes gleaming like predators waiting for a signal. "They're watching," he whispered. She wasn't alone. He loaded his rifle and stood near the airlock, waiting for the first move. Minutes passed in tense silence. Then one of the shadows stood tall, long hair whipping in the wind, blade in hand. She shouted something toward the dome, her voice sharp and commanding. "Luna, translate," Eli ordered. "Language unknown," the AI responded. "Partial match to extinct dialects in galactic archive." The woman on the bed stirred weakly. Her eyes opened, amber and glowing. She tried to speak, but her throat was too dry. Eli offered her a drop of water. She flinched, then accepted it, her trembling hands gripping his wrist for balance. "Easy," he said gently. "You're safe here." She frowned, confused by his words. Then, using what little strength she had, she touched his chest and whispered something that sounded like a question. The translator flickered to life. "You, male?" Eli froze. He nodded slowly. The alien woman's eyes widened in shock. She gasped and spoke again, her voice trembling with disbelief. "A living male. By the stars." Outside, the others began to shout. The translator caught fragments. "Male found. Capture him. The curse is broken." Eli's gut tightened. "Luna, seal the base," he said quickly. The AI activated the lockdown and metal shutters slid over the windows with a hiss. The alien woman struggled to sit up, pain flashing in her eyes. She spoke urgently now, voice shaking. "Don't fight. They're hungry. Desperate. My sisters. They will not wait long." "Who are you?" Eli asked. "We are the huntresses of Koresh," she whispered. "We were the strongest, until the stars turned cold." She explained in broken words that her people once ruled vast hunting worlds, but a famine struck after their home son died. The men of their kind fell sick first, every last one. The females scattered, surviving as best they could. Generations passed, and they became what they were now, starving survivors, bound by instinct and tradition. Eli listened quietly, feeling the weight of her words. He had come here for peace. Instead, he had found a dying race that saw him not just as a man, but as something ancient and sacred. The pounding started, heavy thuds against the outer wall. The huntresses were testing his defenses. The AI's voice came through again. Multiple hostiles surrounding the perimeter, estimated number 6, all armed. Eli grabbed his rifle and moved to the airlock. "Luna, activate the external lights." Brilliant beams cut through the dust storm outside, revealing the huntresses in full view. They looked fierce but broken, faces drawn with hunger, armor cracked and dull. One of them, tall and scarred, raised her weapon and shouted something at him. The translator struggled before producing the phrase, "Give us the male, or we take him by hunt." Eli exhaled slowly. "I'm not a prize. he muttered. The woman inside the base, weak but awake, tried to stand. If you fight them, you'll die, she said. If you show mercy, they might listen. Eli made his choice. He opened the outer door halfway, keeping his rifle lowered but ready. The wind howled through, carrying dust and tension. The huntresses flinched at the sight of him, his human armor, his strange eyes, the calmness in his stance. I don't want to fight, Eli called out, but I will protect myself. The leader stepped forward, scarred and proud. She studied him in silence. Then she said one word that the translator processed slowly. Impossible. She motioned for her group to lower their weapons. The others obeyed reluctantly. She pointed to the woman inside the base and then back at Eli. You saved her, the translator said. Why? Eli hesitated. Because she needed help, he answered simply. The leader's expression softened slightly, just slightly. Humans, she said with a strange smile, always choosing life over logic. Then her knees buckled, and she collapsed to the ground, exhausted. The others rushed to her side, panic flashing in their golden eyes. Eli stared at them through the blowing dust, realizing something deeper than danger was unfolding. These women weren't invaders. They were survivors, barely clinging to life. And somehow his arrival had stirred something ancient inside them, something that had been silent for centuries. He looked at the faint horizon where the twin moons were rising, then back at the huntresses crawling toward their fallen leader. The air shimmered around them like heat waves, but Eli knew it wasn't heat. It was destiny. For the first time since he'd come to this planet, he understood. It was never empty. It was waiting. The night on Solus 3 was colder than usual. The wind outside howled through the canyon, echoing like the cries of long-dead stars. Inside the dome, soft light flickered across Eli's face as he sat beside the alien woman he had rescued. Her breathing had steadied, though her body still trembled from hunger and exhaustion. Eli hadn't slept in 2 days. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the faces of the huntresses outside, their amber eyes filled with both fear and hunger. They hadn't attacked again, but they hadn't left either. They camped beyond the ridge, silent shadows waiting for something. The rescued woman, whose name he had learned was Lyra, finally managed to sit up. Her voice was weak but clearer now. You shouldn't have brought me inside, human, she said softly. My sisters think you belong to them now, Eli frowned. Belong to them? What does that mean? Lyra's golden eyes studied him carefully. It means they will not leave this place until they decide what you are worth. He leaned back, sighing. I'm not worth anything. I just want to live in peace. Lyra gave a faint, sad smile. Peace is a word our kind forgot long ago. She looked at the wall screen where the scanner showed the outlines of the others outside. 6 shapes glowing faintly under the red light. We were once called the huntresses of Koresh, she said. Our world was rich, full of life and honor. The men of our clans hunted with us, ruled beside us. But when the great famine came, the stars burned away our sun, and the cold took everything. Eli listened silently as she spoke. Her words filled with a quiet pain that only survivors knew. The sickness came first for the males, she continued. Their strength faded. Their voices fell silent. Soon there were no males left. Only us, female hunters with no prey and no future. She paused, her hands trembling. We thought the gods had cursed us. For generations we drifted from one dying world to another, surviving on what little we could find. Eli rubbed his temples. And you ended up here. On Solus 3? Our ship crashed many cycles ago, Lyra said. The rest of my sisters starved or froze. Only a few of us remain. She looked up at him suddenly, her eyes sharp. When they saw you, they thought the curse had ended. A living male, breathing, walking. It's something we thought would never exist again. Eli stared at her, the truth sinking in like cold water. You mean, your species hasn't seen a male in centuries? Lyra nodded slowly. Not in living memory. Outside, the wind rose again, carrying faint chanting. The huntresses were gathered around a small fire, their voices rising in an ancient rhythm. The sound was both beautiful and haunting. They're calling to the ancestors, Lyra whispered. They believe your arrival is a sign. A test from the stars. Eli stood and walked to the window. He watched the flames dance beyond the ridge. The women were tall, fierce, but their movements were slow, weakened by hunger. He could almost feel their desperation. He turned back to Lyra. If they're starving, I can help them. I have food supplies, water filters. She shook her head. You don't understand. They don't want your food, Eli. They want you. Eli froze. Me? Lyra lowered her gaze. Our bodies can survive for many years, but our kind is dying. Without males, we cannot continue. They see you as more than food. They see you as life itself. Silence filled the room. The only sound was the hum of the air recyclers. Eli's heart pounded hard against his chest. So what happens now? He asked quietly. Lyra looked at him with sadness in her eyes. They will come for you. They always come for what the stars send. Hours passed. Eli prepared the base defensively but without aggression. He didn't want to harm them. He rationed his supplies, scanned the terrain, and considered options for escape. But deep down, he knew he wouldn't leave. Not while they were starving out there. Near midnight, his motion sensors beeped softly. He turned to the monitor. One of the huntresses was approaching slowly, alone. She carried no weapon, only a bundle wrapped in fur. Eli opened the airlock cautiously. The woman stepped in, her breath misting in the cold. She looked stronger than Lyra, with silver streaks in her dark hair. She placed the bundle on the floor, then knelt before him. Through the translator, her words came softly. You saved my sister. For that, we owe you a life debt. But the clan will not wait much longer. The ritual begins soon. You must choose stay and accept our law or flee before dawn. Eli's mind raced. What law? He asked. She met his gaze. The law of renewal. The first male who walks our path must prove himself worthy. If he fails, he dies. If he succeeds. She hesitated, eyes flicking to Lyra. He becomes one with our tribe. Eli felt the world tilt around him. He had come to Solus 3 for silence, but fate had given him something far louder, a destiny written in the dust and the stars. The woman stood and left the bundle behind. When Eli opened it, he found dried fruit, a blade of carved bone, and a small piece of cloth painted with symbols. Lyra's voice trembled behind him. It's an invitation, she said, to the trial of the hunt. Outside, the wind howled again, carrying the echoes of alien voices calling his name. The dawn on Solus 3 came without color. The twin suns rose weakly through a gray sky, their light cold and distant. Eli stood on the ridge above his dome, staring down at the circle of alien huntresses below. They were waiting, silent, still, and ready. Lyra stood beside him, wrapped in a tattered cloak. Once the trial begins, she said quietly, you must not hesitate. If they sense weakness, they'll end it quickly. Eli adjusted his rifle strap. You mean they'll kill me? She met his gaze with sad honesty. If you fail, yes. But if you survive until the sun set, they will accept you. They will see you as one of them. Eli gave a short laugh. Great. All I have to do is survive a day on a world full of starving warriors. Lyra's lips curved faintly. It's more than survival. It's a test of heart. The huntresses below began to chant in their low, rhythmic language. Their leader, the tall woman with the scar across her cheek, stepped forward. Her name, Lyra had told him, was Sira, the matron of the remaining. Her presence commanded silence even from the wind. Sira raised her spear high and the chant stopped. Her voice carried up to the ridge like thunder. Human, she called through the translator. You came to this world as a stranger. You brought life where there was only dust. Now prove to the stars you are not a mistake. Eli stepped forward, standing tall. And if I do? He shouted back. Then you live, she said, and you become part of the clan of Koresh. He looked down at the tribe. They were thin, scarred, and hungry, but their eyes burned with pride. They were survivors just like him. Sira threw her spear into the ground between them. At sundown we hunt. You will run. We will follow. If you escape, you win. If we catch you, your life is ours. Lyra whispered, don't fight them. Outsmart them. Eli nodded once. I'll try. When the first sun climbed above the canyon rim, the trial began. Eli ran through the rocky terrain, dust whipping into his eyes. His scanner blinked with movement all around, fast, agile signals closing in. He slid down a slope, rolled behind a boulder, and checked his surroundings. They're fast, he muttered. Luna's voice came through his earpiece. Fast but predictable. They're circling from the west, Eli grinned. Then let's give them something to chase. He tossed a motion beacon down a narrow path, and it blinked red. A moment later, 3 huntresses sprinted toward it, weapons raised. When it exploded in a harmless flare of smoke and light, they froze, confused. Eli used the distraction to climb the ridge and move deeper into the canyon. He wasn't trying to win by power, he was surviving by wits. Hours passed. The suns rose higher. The huntresses grew frustrated, their voices echoing angrily across the rocks. They expected fear. Instead, they found strategy. By midday, Eli's body ached, but his mind stayed sharp. He built traps from old drone parts, tripwires, smoke grenades, and flashbangs. Every time they thought they cornered him, the human slipped away like a shadow. But as the second sun began to sink, Sira herself came. She was different from the others, silent, calculating. She didn't chase. She hunted. Eli crouched behind a cliff wall, holding his breath. He could hear her footsteps, light as whispers on stone. "You hide well, human." Her voice came through the translator. "But you cannot hide from purpose." He didn't answer. He waited until she passed the trap he had set. A tripwire linked to a flash grenade and triggered it. A burst of light filled the canyon. Sira stumbled back, momentarily blinded. Eli ran, gasping, lungs burning. When he reached the ridge again, the suns were already touching the horizon. He dropped to his knees, exhausted. Lyra was there, watching from the distance, her cloak flapping in the cold wind. She smiled faintly when she saw him alive. The huntresses emerged from the shadows one by one. Sira stood last, her face streaked with dust and light burns. She looked at him for a long moment, then raised her hand. "The suns have set," she said. "The trial ends." The others bowed their heads. The air grew still. Sira walked up to Eli and placed her hand on his chest. "You didn't kill. You didn't flee. You endured. That is strength." Eli tried to catch his breath. "I wasn't trying to be strong," he said quietly. "I was just trying not to die." Sira's expression softened. "That's what the strong always say." The huntresses knelt one by one, chanting his name in their language. The sound filled the air like the heartbeat of the planet itself. Sira lowered her hand and said the words that would change everything. "From this moment, the human is no longer an outsider. He is part of Koresh." Lyra stepped forward, eyes shining with pride. "You did it," she whispered. Eli looked around at the faces of the warriors, the dying light painting their armor gold. He had come to this planet to be alone, but now he wasn't alone anymore. As night fell and the stars appeared above them, Sira spoke one last time, her voice almost reverent. "You came seeking silence, human, yet the stars sent you to awaken our song again." And in that moment, as the tribe's chant rose into the night sky, Eli realized this world wasn't just his refuge, it was his purpose. The next morning, Solace 3 was silent again. Only the wind moved across the rocks. The huntresses had vanished into their canyon shelters, leaving Eli alone at the trial ground. Dust swirled around the spot where Sira's spear still stood planted in the earth, a symbol that the human had earned his place among them. He touched the spear, still warm from the sun. "So this is what acceptance feels like," he murmured. Behind him, footsteps crunched softly. Lyra approached, her cloak rippling in the cold air. "You survived the trial," she said with quiet pride. Sira never expected that. "I didn't either," Eli replied, half smiling. "But I'm still breathing." "That's good enough." Lyra looked out toward the gray horizon. "You don't understand yet," she said. "For them, survival is sacred. You've become more than a guest now. You're part of their story." Eli sighed, rubbing the dust from his gloves. "I didn't come here to be part of anyone's story. I came here to disappear." Lyra's golden eyes softened. "Then the stars have a strange sense of humor." She turned to leave, but before she could, a shrill alarm blared from the base. Luna's voice cut through the static. "Warning. Unidentified energy signatures detected entering orbit. Multiple crafts. Unknown origin." Eli's blood ran cold. "That can't be good." Moments later, Sira and the other huntresses appeared, their armor clattering as they sprinted toward the dome. "Human," Sira called. "You brought others?" "No," Eli said firmly. "Whatever's coming, it's not mine." The leader's eyes narrowed. "Then they come for you." Through the viewing screen, streaks of fire burned across the sky, drop pods entering the atmosphere. They landed miles away, sending shockwaves through the barren ground. Dust clouds rose like storms, Lyra hissed. "Raiders." Sira gripped her weapon. Scavengers from the belt. They strip dying worlds of anything living or useful. Eli's heart tightened. They'll pick up my signal. The dome's power grid will draw them straight here. He rushed to the control console. Luna, shut down non-essential systems. Mask our heat signature. Working, the AI replied. Sira turned to him. You have fought before? Enough to know that raiders don't stop at asking nicely. The huntresses exchanged quick glances. They were fierce but weak from years of starvation. Their weapons were primitive, blades and bone spears. Against raiders armed with plasma rifles, it was suicide. Eli faced Sira. We need a plan. If we stand in the open, we're dead. Sira's expression remained unreadable. Then teach us, human. Hours passed as they prepared. Eli salvaged what he could from his ship. Old turrets, explosive fuel cells, sensor drones. He trained the huntresses how to lay traps, how to aim, how to ambush. Lyra watched closely, absorbing every word. You fight with patience, she said as he showed her how to steady her hands. Not fury. Fury gets you killed, he answered. Patience wins. When night came, the first raider patrol arrived. 6 armored figures scanning the dunes with harsh floodlights. One raised a scanner. Human signal confirmed. Close in. From the shadows, Sira's whisper came. Now? Eli nodded. Now, the desert erupted. Traps triggered. Shards of light and smoke burst around the raiders. The huntresses struck from above, leaping down with precision. Their movements were graceful and deadly. Eli fired short bursts from his rifle, covering their flanks. For a moment it worked. 2 raiders fell, another fled into the canyon. But then more ships appeared on the horizon. Dozens this time. They're calling reinforcements, Luna warned. Sira wiped blood from her cheek. We cannot fight them all. Eli thought fast. The canyon. We draw them there. Narrow ground, they can't use numbers. He led the way, placing charges along the ridge as the others retreated. The raiders chased after them, shouting through static-filled comms. Blaster bolts lit up the night. At the canyon's mouth, Eli stopped and waited until the raiders filled the narrow pass. Now! He shouted. He pressed the detonator. Explosions thundered down both sides, rocks collapsing, sealing the path in a storm of dust and flame. The screams of the trapped raiders echoed for miles. When the smoke cleared, silence returned, broken only by the soft hum of the wind. The huntresses stared at Eli, their faces illuminated by the dying glow of the fires. Sira approached slowly, her expression unreadable. You fought like one of us, she said. But you risked everything for strangers. Eli shook his head. Not strangers, he said quietly. Not anymore. The leader studied him for a long moment, then placed her hand over his heart, the same gesture she had used to mark acceptance. Then the stars were right, she said. You were sent to awaken the hunt. The others knelt around him, chanting softly, their voices echoing through the canyon. In that moment, Eli realized what he had become. Not just a guest, not just a survivor, but something more. He looked toward the distant horizon where the stars shimmered faintly. Solace 3 was no longer an empty planet. It was alive again, with fire, with unity, with hope. Lyra stepped beside him and whispered, You saved us tonight. But they'll come again. The galaxy will know a male lives here. Eli nodded, eyes hardening. Then let them come. And as the wind carried their chants into the night sky, the human who once sought solitude finally understood. Peace was never found in silence. It was built in the fight to protect those who had nothing left. The days after the battle passed in uneasy quiet. Smoke still drifted over the broken canyon where the raiders had fallen, and the scent of burnt metal lingered in the air. Solus 3, once a dead world, now pulsed faintly with the heartbeat of life. Eli stood on a ridge at sunrise, gazing over the land. For the first time since he had arrived, he heard something new. The low hum of power generators, the faint laughter of the huntresses repairing weapons, and the rhythmic sound of tools striking stone. The planet was waking up. Behind him, Lyra approached, her armor repaired, her eyes brighter. You don't rest much, human, she said. Too much to do, Eli replied, tightening a metal plate on the solar tower. The base needs power. The fields need irrigation. The people need food. You can't eat courage forever, she smiled faintly. Your kind builds faster than it breathes, Eli chuckled. Yeah, it's a habit. We fix what's broken. Even planets, the huntresses had changed since the battle. Their once skeptical stares had softened. They followed Eli's instructions eagerly, learning how to use human tools, build simple wind turbines, and store food safely. He taught them how to grow algae, purify water, and reinforce their shelters. In return, they showed him their ways of hunting, tracking, and surviving the cold storms that swept the barren plains. Sira, their leader, observed silently most days. She was not quick to praise, but her respect for the human grew with every sunrise. When she finally spoke, it was with the weight of command. "You bring fire back to a world long frozen," she said one evening. "Our tribe remembers how to live again." Eli simply nodded. "We did it together." But even as hope grew, danger was never far. Luna's sensors picked up faint transmissions in orbit, scattered radio waves, encrypted and unfamiliar. "More ships?" Eli asked. "Possibly," Luna replied. "Galactic traffic has increased by 40% in nearby sectors. Some are scanning this planet's surface." Sira frowned when Eli told her. "The scent of victory always draws predators," she said. "We will be hunted again." That night they gathered around a large bonfire. The huntresses sat in a circle singing an ancient hymn. Eli listened quietly as their voices rose, carried by the wind. The melody was haunting but alive. When the song ended, Sira turned to him. "You could leave," she said softly. "You have the tools. The ship still works. You could go where no one would find you." Eli looked at the firelight dancing in her amber eyes. "I came here to be alone," he said. "But I found something better than silence." Sira's gaze held his for a long moment. "You found purpose," she said. He didn't deny it. Weeks passed. The colony expanded. Solar lights lit the cliffs at night, turning the once desolate canyon into a glowing cradle of rebirth. The huntresses began to call the place Koreshsol, the new home. Eli built a transmitter using scavenged radar tech to send a false signal, an automated distress beacon claiming the planet was uninhabitable. It was a trick to keep unwanted attention away, but even that couldn't stop the whispers spreading through the galaxy. Lyra brought the news first. "A trading ship passed near the orbit," she said. "They spoke of a rumor, of a human living among warrior women on a ghost world. Some called you a myth, others called you a prize." Eli set down his tools. "A prize? They think a living male among the Koresh is worth a kingdom," she replied bitterly. "Some will come to trade. Others to take," he sighed. "Then we prepare." He spent the next few days modifying the defense drones, programming new watch protocols, and teaching the huntresses how to use long-range scanners. Sira trained them harder than ever, her voice echoing through the camp. But beneath the training, something deeper stirred between them, trust and something close to affection. At night, when the twin moons rose, Sira often stood beside Eli at the edge of the ridge. "You changed us," she said once. "Before you came, we waited for death. Now we wait for tomorrow." Eli smiled faintly. "Tomorrow's overrated," he said. "But it's better than giving up." She tilted her head. "You speak like a soldier who has lost too much. I speak like someone who finally found something worth fighting for." For a moment, the wind carried no sound but their breathing. Then Sira turned to the horizon, where faint flashes of light blinked in the upper atmosphere, ships moving in orbit. "They are coming," she said quietly. Eli followed her gaze. His hand clenched into a fist. "Then they'll see what Solus 3 really is." "What is that?" she asked. He smiled, a tired, fierce smile. "Home." That night, Luna confirmed the worst. Unidentified fleet approaching. Estimated arrival, 2 days. Heavily armed. Eli stood in the dark, staring at the stars through the dome window. The planet that had once been lifeless was now the center of something much larger. Life had returned, but so had the galaxy's hunger. He touched the communicator and spoke softly. "Prepare the tribe, Luna. Tell Sira. The humans' peace is over." As the stars burned brighter in the cold black sky, Eli realized that Solus 3 had truly awakened, not just as a world, but as a signal to the universe. A human lived here, and he wasn't alone anymore. The warning sirens blared through the night, cutting through the wind's long howl. Eli sprinted to the command console inside the dome, his hand steady despite the trembling ground. The scanners painted a cold truth across the screen. An entire fleet was descending. Not raiders this time, but something organized. He could see the dark formation of ships breaking through the clouds, their hulls glowing like blades dipped in fire. "Luna," he said. "How many?" 23 vessels. Heavy armament. Planetary landing craft deployed," the AI answered. Sira entered the dome, her armor gleaming with fresh paint. The old symbols of Koresh redrawn over her chest. "So it begins," she said quietly. "They have come for you," Eli nodded. "Or for what we've built." Outside, the huntresses gathered, hundreds strong now. The once broken tribe had multiplied as signals had drawn survivors from nearby moons. They had come because of a rumor, a human who stood with them, a world reborn. Eli stepped out of the dome and looked over them. "You all know what's coming," he said. "They think this world is weak. They think we're prey. Let's show them otherwise." Sira raised her spear to the sky, her voice booming across the plain. "We fight not for hunger or death. We fight for tomorrow." The huntresses roared as the first landing craft tore through the atmosphere, engines screaming. Dust storms rose, shaking the valley. The invasion began with fire. Dropships slammed into the surface, disgorging troops in metallic armor. Energy bolts flashed through the air, striking rock and sand. But the huntresses didn't run. They moved like shadows, splitting into hunting packs, striking from cliffs and caves. Eli directed the defense grid from the ridge. "Luna, bring the turrets online. Target landing zones 3 through 7. "Confirmed," said the AI. Lasers cut across the horizon, ripping through enemy ships. The ground shook under explosions. One of the huntresses screamed as she fell, and Lyra pulled her to cover, firing a scavenge blaster in short, sharp bursts. Eli ran to help, tossing smoke grenades to mask their movement. "Keep your heads down," he shouted. Sira charged through the chaos, her spear crackling with stolen plasma energy. She struck down 2 soldiers with one swing, moving like a storm-given flesh. "Push them to the cliffs," she ordered. The battle raged for hours. The air grew thick with dust and heat. The attackers, expecting an easy victory, began to falter against the fierce resistance. Eli climbed onto a damaged gunship and signaled the huntresses. "Drive them into the canyon!" he yelled. When the enemy regrouped in the narrow pass, he detonated the ridge explosives he had set days earlier. The explosion rolled through the canyon like thunder. The ground split, swallowing half the enemy forces into the abyss. The rest fled, their leader screaming into the comms for retreat. The final explosion echoed for miles, and then silence. When the smoke cleared, the valley lay still. The twin suns rose over the battlefield, washing the broken land in gold. The huntresses stood among the wreckage, their armor scorched, their faces marked with dust and victory. Eli walked among them, his rifle hanging from his shoulder. His body ached, but he smiled. "You did it," he said softly. "You won." Sira turned to him, her hair streaked with ash. "No," she said. "We all did. You showed us how to fight for more than survival." Eli looked around. The wrecked ships, the burning sky, the defiant faces. Solus 3 was no longer silent. It was alive, loud with triumph. Lyra approached and placed something in his hand. A shard of broken metal shaped like a wing. "From their commander's armor," she said. "A reminder that the strong once tried to break us." Eli closed his hand around it. "Let's rebuild," he said. Again. Weeks later, green patches began to spread where the explosions had scorched the soil. Seeds the huntresses had planted were sprouting. Water flowed from new channels. The planet was healing. At night, fires burned across the camp. Songs filled the air, songs of Koresh and of Solus 3. The 2 names had become one. Sira stood beside Eli, watching the horizon. "The galaxy knows now," she said. "They will come again, some to fight, some to join." Eli nodded. "Let them come. We'll be ready." She looked at him for a long moment, then smiled faintly. "You came here to be alone. Now you lead a world," he laughed quietly. "Life's funny that way." Above them, the stars shimmered, brighter than ever. The wind carried the sound of the tribe's chants into the sky, strong, proud, and unbroken. Solus 3 had been a forgotten world, an empty rock at the edge of space. Now it was something else entirely, a home, a legend, and as the human stood among his new family beneath the rising suns, he whispered to himself, "They'll never call this planet empty again."